One of the biggest shifts that happened to me as a job seeker was when someone gave me a bit of advice regarding job interviews. Um, they told me to stop treating it as a test and approach it as if we were two adults having a conversation. Everything changed at that point. Literally everything. My confidence changed, my answers changed, the energy in the room changed because I went from just being the person who was being evaluated, all eyes on me, sweaty palms, the whole nine, to also being someone who was doing the evaluating. So today I want to talk about the mindset shift that really fueled my love for job interviews on both sides of the hiring table. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Kristina. If we haven't met, I am a lead talent acquisition professional with over 15 years of experience in the space, a dual certified HR professional. I work with my clients to help them get clear on what it is they want for the next steps in their career and move forward with intention and ensure alignment along the way. Today we have a fun one because if you've heard me talk about job interviews before, you know that I have a love for them that I find adds so much value to my clients as they're preparing for interviews. So let's talk about the one shift, right? That changed my approach. Um, it's the change in perspective. So, an interview is a conversation, right? It's sometimes between two people, sometimes it's between four people or more, right? I've been on some panels where I think, gosh, we're doing the most. Um, but it's a conversation between a few people. And the decision, let's say it's two people for the sake of simplicity, but um, I'm deciding if I like you as the job seeker, and you're deciding if you like me as the person interviewing me. And I don't mean personally, right? I mean, is this an organization? You are the organization's representative as part of the hiring team. Is this an organization I want to be part of? You are a representative of the organization. Did they send their best person to interview me? Is this person leading me to believe that this would be a great place for me to work based on what I'm looking for in terms of my career, right? And on the flip side, the person interviewing you is trying to determine if you would be a good fit. So, not if they like you personally necessarily, but are you going to add value to the team based on what they're looking for in this particular role for this particular team? Could you possibly be the person to slide in and be a great fit, right? Add value sooner rather than later. Like there are things we're evaluating for sure. Um, can that be you? And so I'm trying to figure out, you're trying to figure out, it's there, we're all making a decision. We're all evaluating at this point. Doesn't that take some of the pressure off? Doesn't that change your confidence going in? Like, it's not just an all eyes on me. You like me. You asked me to come here today, right? I'm not saying ever say that, please don't. But you invited me in for this job interview, so you have an interest in me. I applied because I have an interest in you. Now we just need to figure out if that interest goes deeper, if that's something we should pursue. Um, so reframing, right? Shifting that mindset, I think is extremely valuable. The other bit of I guess advice I'd share to tack on to that is that when you have made that mindset shift, you also stop performing. Because some people, y'all get in there, get in these interviews, and it is like you're on Broadway. You have rehearsed your script and you are just like you're not present, you're detached, and it's and you're like, hey, we're here. And for some, and I've seen this happen where they've rehearsed so much that they have this idea of the questions they're going to ask, and they ask these questions, and us interviewers are like, dang, like, didn't we already address that earlier? But they're so rehearsed that they're not present, that they're not grounded. Here's one thing, one bit of advice I'll share with you. And this came up some years ago. I was part of a hiring team at an organization, and I'd been coaching the hiring manager on best practices for interviews. And so he would like take little nuggets away. We'd evaluate after he met with candidates and we'd compare notes, right? So I had a couple of really strong candidates that I narrowed the pool down to and submitted it to him for consideration. He interviewed them, and then we start comparing notes. And one point that came up for him was notes. So one of the candidates actually took the time to take notes during the interview process. And that stood out for the hiring manager as someone, first of all, who came with one of these. Okay. And I've got a couple over here, one of these. Okay. So they had note paper, they had a pen, they were ready on this note paper. And I actually love this. I fell in love with this idea when he and I had this conversation. But on this note paper, he also had a list of questions he wanted to be sure to ask based on the job description. And he knew, he being the candidate, knew that he was now interviewing with the person he would report to. So he had some pretty good questions on this sheet of note paper, also where he would, take copious notes. Um, and that made a difference. Now, I'm not saying every hiring manager cares about that. I'm not saying everyone on a hiring team cares about that. But it puts you in a space to where you're capturing the information you need to capture so that when it comes time at the end to ask questions, you actually already, or you're already blah blah blah. I'm not even gonna edit it. You're already ready, right? Like you have an idea based on what was shared because you got some notes, the types of questions you want to ask. So and I'll slide in just one more interview tip because I can't help myself. Send a thank you note. And I've seen some conversations, some chatter around this on social platforms where some folks are saying they never read thank you emails. I had someone send me a physical thank you letter that got to me long after the interview. This was years ago. Um, and she sent it. Here's why it got to me long after, because she sent it to the physical location of the office. And like I've mentioned before, I've worked remotely for a long time, a long time. And so I remember someone saying, Kristina, we got some mail for you. Like, should we send it to your home? I was like, mail from who? She sent a physical letter. Hey, you don't have to go that far. An email is sufficient. Um, but I remember one hiring manager also saying that, one of these candidates, they're both good. One different hiring manager, one actually sent a thank you note at the end. And I thought, yeah, that I think it's a nice touch, especially in a job market when you know that there's a pretty likely solid pool of applicants who have applied, but also a solid pool of candidates being considered. You might want to stand out in a good way, right? And so, what's the harm in sending a thank you email? As a matter of fact, I think it can only help, not hurt. So, Stay grounded during the interview, knowing that the conversation is one where multiple decisions are being made and you are one of the decision makers, right? That should change the energy and you should feel more empowered. Um, Another thing I'll say, because I'm talking about you also having to make a decision, um, when I think about some of the best questions I've gotten at the end of an interview, a couple of them come to mind. So, one is depending on who you're interviewing with. You're not going to ask a recruiter this question, but hiring manager, hiring manager's manager, right? Sort of the what keeps you up at night. What is it that keeps you up at night when you think about the growth of the team, when you think about the goals of the team and how you're tracking in relation to those goals? Where does the opportunity exist? That's a great one. I love it. I geek out over that question. Um, because that's the strategic mindset. When I'm talking to clients, we're always talking about six-figure roles. So that's just the strategic mindset that sets you apart from so many others. Another one I like, and so I've actually used this in the past, but see, you've been at the organization for fill in the blank number of years, and the only way for you to know that as a job seeker is for you to actually look at boop, LinkedIn. I know some of you are struggling with that, so I'll pop a couple of resources below. Um, but I see that you've been with the organization for X number of years. Kind of tell me what it is that attracted you and what keeps you here. Now, if they've been with the organization for 20 years, mm, they may not remember what attracted them. They should remember what keeps them there, but they're maybe closely like, yeah, you massage it, right? It's not a question you want to ask everyone. So let's say they've been there 5 years. What attracted you 5 years ago? And the fact that you're still here 5 years later, don't add that part. But what keeps you here, right? What is it that you like? Because people are jumping ship, right? Like moving pieces. You stay with an organization 5, 6, 7, 10 years, somewhere in there, you're rolling out somewhere else. Um, Not always, because some folks have been there 30 years, right? But depending on how long they've been there, use your better judgment. What attracted you and what keeps you. That for me is better than asking someone to describe the culture of an organization because within that answer, you will hear it, right? It's so funny. In my recruiting capacity, I asked a hiring manager that question, right? So I'm working with her to fill a position. And this was my first time working with her. And I knew she came in with some interesting energy to our initial intake conversation. And I'm like, so tell me, right? Like, what makes this place a great place to work from your experience? Not just her team, but like, what makes it a great place to work? And I'm talking to two actual hiring managers at the time. And one of them is like, I don't know, so and so, you want to take that one? And I thought, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be, that told me you might not really have your foot all the way in. At this point, you might be tiptoeing out um, because you can't tell me what makes this a great place to work. And if you can't tell me, then how are you going to hire for these positions, right? Where's your head right now? It tells me a lot as the recruiter working with hiring teams. So I think you learn a lot from that question. Um, yeah, I think you'd learn a lot from that question, more so than tell me about the culture of the organization. Um, talk to me a little bit about not just next steps in the process, right? Because that's pretty I think it's pretty bland sometimes because you can get that from a recruiter. So maybe that's something you get on the front end if you have an opportunity to speak to a recruiter and not necessarily the hiring manager or someone in leadership. Um, but talk to me a little bit about, um, what's been your biggest challenge with filling this opportunity? They may not have had any at all. Oh no, we've got a ton of candidates to consider. Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, I'll tell you this, I'm still very much interested in the opportunity, and certainly look forward to hearing about next steps. There are times when um, I'll ask or have been asked, what's the biggest opportunity on this team? And then there are questions that you can ask specific to your role. So for me, for example, in a talent acquisition capacity, and this requires you to know your job, okay? You have to know your job. Um, Talk to me about your current applicant tracking system and where the biggest opportunities lie and how you're working toward addressing those opportunities. Let me tell you something. That puts people in a position, leadership, I'm not talking about recruiters, puts people in a position to acknowledge that they are hiring someone who is seasoned, who is experienced. Seasoned is what you do to chicken. Who is experienced, strategic, right? May be able to support whatever the project is. Maybe they just moved or migrated from one system to the other. Maybe they're leaving Workday behind and going to, um, I'm trying to think of one I actually like and I'm struggling. ISOMs, right? Like, where's the biggest opportunity? And if you tell me there's no opportunity in your applicant tracking system, I want to know what it is because you will have done a great job of customizing it, right? Tailoring it to your needs. So fantastic. What's been the feedback from the team? Um, so again, know your job, but knowing your job requires the preparation, right? Ideally, you've been doing that, you've done your research, um, and you are going to come in with questions because the job interview, a discussion between a couple of people, I don't know if I want to be here. If you can't acknowledge opportunities in your ATS, if you can acknowledge that there are growth opportunities for your team, um, then I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And again, you tailor the questions depending on the role, right, of the person who is interviewing you. So I hope that helps. Um, I have tools and resources for interview support. I'd say there's the interview confidence kit. I'll link that below. Um, and then a clarity session is a great way for us to get on the phone and kind of unpack all that job interviews encompass and make sure you're positioned for success. So I hope that helps. If this resonates, certainly hit that like button and hit that share button. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe. It makes a huge difference. And if you are watching on other platforms, go ahead and hit that follow button. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you soon.